could estimate how many people you might have met at those hundreds or thousands of events and receptions.
Well, Counsel, I can't say I met every person who ever attended an event, and so I can't really give you an accurate number. But if the event was a small event, perhaps I would meet everyone. But for most of the large events that we hosted, it was hit or miss if I met somebody or didn't meet somebody. For the huge Christmas receptions, which were thousands of people that would come to enjoy the holiday decorations at the White House. So I can't really give you a totally clear answer other than I did my best to greet people and to be an appropriate hostess because I took seriously my responsibilities as First Lady.
So Mr. Epstein visited the White House a fair amount during your husband's first term in office. One, and I think the only specific event that we're aware of where you may have been present was, as you mentioned earlier, a September 29th, 1993 reception for donors to a White House renovation project that was funded through the White House Historical Association. And our understanding is there was some kind of reception that night. Do you have any recollection of attending that event or that reception?
I have no specific recollection, but I know that I was expected to, and I assume I did. But I can't, sitting here today, describe anything specific about that event. But I was very anxious to support fundraising that went to the White House Historical Association that in turn supported the upkeep and the maintenance of the White House. Because certainly, it was an old building with a lot of very valuable furniture and art, and it took a lot of wear and tear because I just finished explaining we had thousands of people who would come through. And I'm not even talking about the visitors who would come through, because that was many, many more thousands. So the house itself needed to be carefully cared for. And so my husband and I hosted the event, and the White House Historical Association brought those who had contributed because it was ultimately beneficial for the White House.
Would it be correct to say that sitting here, you have no specific memory or recollection of meeting Mr. Epstein or Ms. Maxwell at that event in 1993?
That is an accurate statement. In fact, when I got the subpoena, I was incredulous because I never thought I was in the same room with Jeffrey Epstein. And it was brought to my attention that he was very likely to have attended the White House Historical Association, but I have no independent recollection of that.
Okay. It has been publicly reported that Mr. Epstein visited the White House 16 other times during your husband's first term. He was signed in by different staff members and visited different parts of the White House. Broadly speaking, do you have any memory or knowledge of any other visits by Jeffrey Epstein to the White House other than the one we just discussed?
Not that I recall, but I want to be clear. That doesn't mean that, I didn't pass somebody in the hallway, that somebody didn't pop in, but I have no recollection.
Great.
Of meeting with him, seeing him, conversing with him in the White House.
I'm going to fast forward all the way to 1999. We believe that Mr. Epstein contributed $20,000 to your joint fundraising account with the Democratic Party. Would you have any specific memory, knowledge, or recollection of that particular contribution sitting here today?
I do not. And again, this was something that I learned about in preparation for testifying. And as you point out, Counsel, the contribution went to the joint committee that was set up to support my Senate campaign. And my memory is that we couldn't coordinate between joint committees and campaigns. I mean, those were the rules back in the day as I recall them. So I don't have any recollection at all that I knew he contributed to my campaign. And he did not contribute, as far as I know, directly, but then this indirect contribution to the joint committee, I don't recall that I knew it at the time, and I was, surprised to learn it in preparation for testifying.
So at this point, toward the end of your husband's presidency, how would you characterize your relationships at that point with Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell?
Non-existent.
Thank you. Moving to the period after your husband's presidency, again, we don't really have much of a record to work off of. There is public reporting that sometime in 2007, Ms. Maxwell may have co-hosted a fundraiser for your presidential campaign in New York City. We don't know much about it. Christina Aguilera may have performed, if that's helpful. Do you have any specific recollection of that event?
I do not, but I, again, have been told and reminded that there was an event with a very large host committee for my campaign, and Christina did appear and I believe performed. I have no further information than that. I was attending many fundraising events, and I don't recall any specific encounter or conversation with anyone, including Ghislaine Maxwell.
Ms. Maxwell also appears to have donated $2,300 to your presidential campaign that year. Do you have any memory or knowledge of that specific contribution?
I do not.
Would it be fair to say that your presidential campaign likely would have had a fair number of donors donating $2,300 thereabouts?
Oh, many thousands. I don't recall the exact number, but my best memory is that we raised nearly $1 billion. And so it was a fast, frenetic pace. And I'm grateful for everyone who contributed, obviously, but I have no specific recollection of her contribution.
It's been widely reported, and we, I think, discussed in the previous hour, that in July of 2010, Ms. Maxwell attended your daughter's wedding in Rhinebeck, New York, and that she may have accompanied Ted Waite, who is reportedly a family friend, or at least was at the time. You, of course, were also present at the wedding. Do you have any recollection of Ms. Maxwell's attendance at the wedding?
I have no specific recollection. Obviously, there's a picture of her being at the wedding as my husband walks my daughter down the aisle. She was there as a guest of Ted Waite, someone we had known for 30 years, I believe, who was a strong supporter of my husband and became a friend. And there were more than 500 people at the wedding. So other than that picture of her at the wedding, I have no recollection of talking with her. I was pretty focused on my daughter and the wedding party and the wonderful occasion that it was. So I don't recall having any conversation other than the fact she was there, and she was there as Ted Waite's guest.
And the understanding that you had, if any, about her relationship with Mr. Waite, what was your understanding of that, if you had one?
That they must have been dating. And this was, of course, long before certainly I knew anything about the activities that she was charged with engaging in and the crimes that she was convicted of.